Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Coming up, Chinese authorities are under pressure to control the spread of a new deadly disease. We take a look at how the world's most populated country has fared in previous outbreaks. A baby is born nearly every second in India. With the country's population of 1.4 billion people, some politicians want to limit how many children families can have. And as more and more minors tie the knot in Nepal, society pays the price. Activists say underage marriages often lead to dropping out of school, domestic violence, and health problems. Now, a new strand of coronavirus has caused panic across China and abroad. Authorities took severe precautions, but there's still concern with a flood of travelers for Chinese New Year, what is often called the largest human migration. We take a look back at how China has fared in previous outbreaks.
It was here in Wuhan, the capital of central China's Hebei province, where a new coronavirus was born. Reports suggest it was at this seafood market where a human was first infected. The so-called Wuhan virus causes a deadly type of pneumonia. International and Chinese authorities fear it could proliferate quickly. 3 weeks after it was first reported to the World Health Organization, Chinese state broadcaster CCTV relayed instructions from President Xi Jinping.
Party committees and relevant departments at all levels should put people's lives and health first, make thorough plans, organize prevention and control, take practical and effective measures, and resolutely curb the spread of the epidemic.
Coronaviruses are common among animals, but in rare cases, they jump onto humans. The latest Wuhan virus is now the 7th known strain. The current outbreak brings back memories of another type of coronavirus that originated in China. In the early 2000s, the SARS epidemic spread to 26 countries and killed almost 800 people. Chinese authorities were criticized for concealing just how severe the situation was. A Beijing doctor exposed the cover-up, after which the country's health minister and the Beijing mayor were fired. The whistleblower was later hailed a national hero. Dense cities and increasingly mobile citizens make infections seem inevitable, but sometimes human error and mismanagement are also at the heart of health crises. In the 80s and 90s, unsafe collection techniques at blood banks meant that HIV and hepatitis C spread rapidly in China's poorest regions. Beijing later admitted that more than 500,000 people could have been infected with HIV by contaminated blood. In the wake of China's latest health crisis, President Xi's government wants to re-establish trust between authorities and the public, striking a balance between containing the new virus and avoiding mass panic in the world's most populous country.
India's population is nearly 1.4 billion people, and some politicians have reignited a controversial debate, limiting each family to just 2 children. Lawmakers are considering the so-called population regulation bill. Critics, though, have said more education is needed and point to China's one-child policy in previous decades, which led to skyrocketing abortions and infanticide. Keris Garland has more.
In certain Indian states, like here in Rajasthan, a part of the population must abide by a law that exists nowhere else in the world. Ahmed Singh Rathore first learned about it while he was looking for a job.
I was offered a job as a guard at the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly. There were 10 vacancies and I was selected. But later the director told me that the offer had been revoked. I asked why.
The reason? He has 3 daughters. In Rajasthan, people with more than 2 children are banned from working for the government.
I have 3 children, but I didn't do anything wrong. This law is wrong. Why does the government interfere in our private life? They're meant to help us.
With almost 1.4 billion people, India has the 2nd largest population in the world, putting a strain on its health and education services, as well as infrastructure like transport. The debate over a nationwide 2-child policy has again been pushed into the spotlight, with politicians renewing calls for it to be made law. Many support the idea and organise rallies.
It's not a question of rich or poor. It would apply to everyone of all religions. Nobody should be able to have more than 2 children in order to control the population.
If you can't provide your children with clean air or water, and you can't give them a good education, it's pointless.
Last year, an Indian lawmaker introduced the Population Regulation Bill into the upper house. If voted through, families with more than 2 children would suffer consequences, such as higher interest rates on bank loans, unpaid maternity and paternity leave, and a ban on being elected to local or national parliament. For this demographer, however, the solution is through education, not punishment.
There is a need to introduce sexual and reproductive health education in the school curriculum. The government needs to provide expanded basket of contraceptive choices.
In 2016, India's birth rate dropped to 2.3 births per woman, down from 3.2 in 2000. But given the sheer scale of the country, this still means 53 babies born per minute.
Well, forced marriages have declined in Nepal, but activists warned they are being replaced by consensual underage unions. Like arranged marriages, these child marriages pose risks such as dropping out of school, domestic violence, and health problems. Olivia Salazar-Winspear has more.
It sounds like a grand romantic gesture, but eloping with her childhood sweetheart was a huge mistake for Asha Charti Kaki, who was little more than a child herself at the time. Pregnant at 16, Asha suffered severe gynecological problems after giving birth and dropped out of school. Drawing on her experience, she's now working with education charities as a mentor for young women like herself.
I had many troubles, and people should understand that I suffered because of child marriage. I tell them that they should not have to marry, and I try to teach others that they should learn from my mistakes.
Girls like Aradana, who discovered that her young husband was a violent drug addict during their marriage, she says now that leaving him saved her life.
I married when I was 13. I was studying in class 5 at the time, but now I've left that house and returned to school with the help of my sisters from the village.
Nepal has one of the world's highest rates of child marriage, despite the fact the legal age is 20. A recent survey showed that half of Nepali women aged between 25 and 49 were married by their 18th birthday. Those working to eliminate the practice come up against significant cultural barriers. Underage marriages are rarely reported to the authorities, and there's a stigma surrounding couples who are not engaged.
Basically, 1/3 of child marriages are cases of girls and boys liking each other and eloping. The practice is increasingly popular in the mountainous regions.
In a country where arranged marriages were traditionally the norm, these so-called love matches represent a certain freedom to choose, albeit without the maturity to inform that choice.
Now, a question for you. Are you familiar with the tarsier? It is the second smallest primate in the world at about 100 grams and 15 centimeters, or the size of your palm. Its eyes are actually larger than both its stomach and its brain, but the tarsier isn't quite as cute as it looks, and its habitat is being threatened. Yenali tells us more.
The Philippine island of Bohol is famous for its chocolate hills and its luscious greenery. But if you look a little closer, you'll also find a curious animal that's been around for some 45 million years. Tarsiers are primates that measure just 8 to 16 centimeters.
It's super cute, super small with its big eyes, so unusual with its big hands.
To protect the Philippine tarsier, 170 hectares of Bohol Island have become protected land.
Okay.
A small part of that land is open to the public, but the number is capped to 300 visitors a day. As soon as these French tourists enter the park, their guide spots one for them.
They can live 20 to 25 years. They're only active in night and in daytime they will rest. And their baby is just like this. Yes.
Popular because of their unusual characteristics. Tarsiers can turn their head 180 degrees in both directions. This because their big eyes cannot move. But they're also territorial, to each their own tree, and they'll fight trespassers to the death. The little primates are also easily frightened. They're known to bang their heads on objects when they're stressed.
You are not allowed to touch them because they will commit suicide.
I feel so lucky to be able to see them. Not everyone will have this opportunity, especially because there aren't many more of them left.
The Philippine tarsier is an endangered species. There are only 5,000 to 10,000 left. This sanctuary is home to 100 of them, but elsewhere, deforestation and poaching means that they've become increasingly rare.
These animals really have no other destiny but to be extinct because the world is changing and their habitats getting smaller and smaller because they're very sensitive and they're very reliant to their habitat.
Bohol Island has applied for UNESCO Geopark status. With it comes the funding and awareness programs that could help protect the tarsier's natural habitat. If nothing changes, one of the oldest species on the planet is on track to become extinct in the next 2 decades.
Now imagine having such a bad experience at the hairdressers that you never cut your hair again. Well, that's what a 6-year-old girl in India decided to do a long time ago. Today, at age 17, her hair is 190 centimeters long. Nilanshi Patel set a Guinness World Record for the longest hair on a teenager. She also held the previous record. It takes about an hour to comb and half an hour to dry. But she has a long way to go before she holds the adult record. That was set in 2004 by a Chinese woman whose hair measured more than 5.6 meters. Well, that's it for this edition. Thanks for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.
Sur France 24, la nuit, on est très fiers d'accompagner les Amériques dans leurs soirées, de voir l'Asie se réveiller, et on est là jusqu'à ce que Paris s'éveille.
France 24 es más que solo noticias. Es libertad, igualdad y actualidad. Nosotros damos un paso más allá, con información al momento para analizar, comprender, poner en perspectiva y debatir.
In Live from Paris, our correspondents around the world keep you up to date.
من الطبيعي أن يكون شعارها الحرية وخاصة حرية التعبير في بلد حرية التعبير.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.